Hello and welcome to episode 3 of How to Science in Kerbal Space Program version 0.23. Today we're going to attempt to go to the moon, but first we're going to run a couple of quick Kerbin orbital missions. First one, we're going to take our same Kerbin 3 ship that we went into orbit with last time and do a quick polar orbital run. Just to grab a little extra science, let's go ahead and get somebody new in the driver's seat. Kerbin. Alright, a lot of courage. He's going to need it if he gets stuck at the North Pole. Alright, so we already know this design works. So we're going to take it out to the launch pad. Alright, now SAS on, thrusters to full, launching in 3, 2, 1, liftoff. Alright, and like I said, we're going to head north. Make sure I'm using the right key on this time. Slow this down a bit. Fairly nice profile. Let's see what we have in the map view. We add more north lean. It should work its way out here. Let's go ahead and lean right over. Some of this velocity going for us in the northward direction. Preparing the stage. Now let's see the map. Okay, now we're getting more northward drift. Like I said, canceling out some of the eastward spin of the planet. It's going to be a little harder to get into orbit on the polar path just because you don't have the velocity that came with the spinning planet as kind of a head start. But I think the ship has enough fuel to do it. We just may have less to get us down from orbit once we're up there. Building up some nice velocity. Let's see what our apoapsis is now. 36, okay. Our prograde is pretty close to our direction. There we go. There, let's get some nice progress. Getting close to running out of fuel. Yep. And we were a little slower than we were last mission. So that's that. Lean this over. So we're going to change the orbit from surface. It compensated for how much we were offline of north. Whoa, way too high. Don't realize how much power this little last stage has. Power to weight ratio. Alright, so let's go ahead and not have that pop up again. I will see you when we are near apoapsis. Alright, let's try to get this thing into orbit. I let the apoapsis get behind me, which usually isn't a good thing, but we're so high. I think we'll be okay. Just have to establish an orbit. Okay, there's our periapsis. And let's go ahead and do that. Eccentric orbit. 115 and 77. Alright, now back to our science stuff. Let's see what this gets us. Probably not much. No, not much. So let's go ahead and save that for something else. And again, I don't think we get anything for the goo. Yeah, nothing for the goo. Let's see where we are as far as EVAs go. Are we over anything interesting? Kerbin's Highlands? Nope. Really not until we get to the poles. So let's go ahead and do that board. Use some acceleration. Okay, let's see what's here. Nope, grasslands. Nothing new here so far. Water, nope. Have to wait till we get over the ice cap. There we go, over the ice caps, 8 science. Not a whole lot, let's see. Again, these give us nothing new and interesting. So what we're going to attempt to do, so we're not going to go ahead and worry about a full orbit. We're just going to attempt to land on the South Pole. So let's go ahead and get on a retrograde. And go ahead and start burning. That's a little too far. So now let's turn around and go the other way. Alright, what do we have here? This is kind of interesting. So that is definitely too low there. I probably come down in the water still, because that will slow us down a lot once we hit that point. Let's try that and see what happens. Alright, I'll see you when we get there. Alright, Kerbin is safely on the ground. Let's see where we are. As you can tell, I came nowhere near the ice cap. Shows how well I can control where I land, but I think this might be highlands. So let's see. Nope, grasslands. Well, we do get 7.5 science out of that. This is a new biome for the materials bay, so we'll keep that. Mystery goo, a little tiny sliver. No point in letting it go the way, so let's get the last little sliver. So we'll end up getting most of that with this one, so maybe 0.1. We need ladders to and we've already done all the reports here. We might get a little more from a surface sample, so let's go ahead and let go. Fall to the ground and walk this way. Let's go ahead and get a screenshot. And take take a surface sample. Yeah, two more science. Keep that data. UVA report. Yeah, nothing there. Alright, so let's go ahead and recover Kenkin. Collect his little bit of science. Head out to the... cover that. 18. So, not a great mission, but it added to our science. Let's go see what our totals are now. This kind of gives you an indication of how hard it is to get more science out of an existing world. You really have to dig deep for little slivers of information here and there. So we only have 44 total, so not enough to unlock any of the new tier of technology. But there is a place we can go near Kerbin that does have a good bit of new science. And that is in high orbit. So this will give us a good test of building a new ship that can get higher than before. And so we need more Delta V on this sucker. Same package is going to work for us. There's no new science devices there, but we need to get further or farther with this guy. So let's start up Kerbin 4. And first step is we now have the large fuel tanks. So let's go ahead and start by making this stage a little more impressive. Let's take these guys off. Actually, let's put them back on. Let's go ahead and extend this to 3 full pieces. Then you take that off and put on 4 times symmetry. So that gives us more there, more power, more lift, and more fuel. I think the last thing we can do is go ahead and give this stage some more burn. And let's do that by replacing that with one of those. And because we've done that, let's actually move this down to here so it's resting on... Actually, we have the gantry, don't we? So we can go ahead and keep this up here, put the nose cone back on. And put up some gantries. And now this should have enough delta V to get into high orbit. Possibly even to the moon. At least a lunar flyby, but we'll see how much we have left when we get there. Alright, so this into there. Let's double check all our stages here. 4 decouplers down to 1 engine. That 1 engine is pushing quite a bit of ship. So I'm wondering if we go with this engine instead. $120 thrust compared to 200 for that one. So that's 480. So twice as much thrust, but we have quite a bit more rocket to push. So we can throttle back a bit. So let's go ahead and do that. A little more complicated than I wanted, but as you can see, it's a progression of the previous rocket. So those engines are going to go, that's our second stage, so they're going to go with these decouplers. And then when that decouples, we'll fire that engine with this long fuel tank, and then that will decouple that when we come back to Earth. Alright, so let's give this a try. Save. Crew. Let's do LCAL. Alright, LCAL. Let's see how high we can make you fly. Alright, SAS on. Throttles to full. 3, 2, 1, liftoff. Pretty nice acceleration so far. Give it just a touch of lean. A little fast. Let's go ahead and slow this down. So we hit the 200 meters per second at 10,000 meters. Let's go ahead and lean it over a little more aggressively now. Ready for our second stage. Oops, got a little off center there. Okay, what kind of profile do we have here on our map view? 24,000. Getting some velocity to the ship now. How fast are we burning through this fuel? Pretty darn fast. Let's go ahead and slow it down a bit. Let's see what our profile is now. 48, 49. Probably not as much extra delta V as I was hoping for. You know, because you add weight as you add extra fuel. Let's go ahead and get into a regular low orbit first. Alright, we've achieved a low orbit, and we still have a little more than half a tank, a little less than half a tank, 180 would be half, so a little less than half a tank left, which should be good for what we need to do, because what we need to do is raise our orbit and find the boundary of where high orbit is compared to near orbit, because that's a new area to get science from. And with a science canister, materials bay, and the 2 goo pods plus EVA and crew report, we should get a nice chunk of science, and that should enable us to unlock 1, maybe 2 of the next tier technologies before we attempt to go for the moon. So let's go ahead and bring ourselves to the apoapsis again, because it's always more efficient to burn from either one of these. We'll raise that up to I had actually figured out what the boundary was before, but I do not remember offhand. I think it's either 200 or 250,000 meters. But let's find out. This is how you find out these things, is you just experiment. So let's give a burn. Let's raise this up to over 200 at first. There we go. Now let's go over there. Okay, let's, just for experiment's purpose sake, we are going to see if we are still near orbit, under 150, while in space near Kerbin, so yes, we are still near orbit. And we go over 150, still near Kerbin, so that's what we need to know. Now let's go for 175. Because this is the kind of experiment that we'll need to do repeatedly throughout the solar system. So over 175, still near Kerbin. Let's go to 200. Okay, over 200 is still near Kerbin, so it's probably 250. So let's go back. And it'd be a waste of energy to raise this one and then have to come back. So let's go ahead and go around. We'll get back to our periapsis, raise this over 250. Actually, we'll raise it to over 300. And that way, in case it's more than 250, we'll be able to test that hypothesis. We still have plenty of fuel. We use barely any fuel to raise this up to 200. So this should be pretty easy. Click on that to keep it up. Alright, and this burn doesn't have to be all that. You can use maneuver nodes, but as long as we're burning prograde, we will be raising that number. And I barely have any throttle, and it's going up at a nice pace, over 250. And over 300. Okay, that's good. And see, we used only 6 units of liquid fuel for that burn, so very efficient. Alright, let's go back to our view here so we can see 270. So we're over 250, so let's see what that high over Kerbin. So 250 I believe is the number. It's less than 275. We can test this for sure coming back down, but since we're up here in the high orbit, let's go ahead and do our science. We get 10 science from the mystery goo. We might as well do the other one. Go ahead and grab that because we'll fill out the rest of it, which should be about 2.5, somewhere around there. Observe the materials bay. This should be a nice chunk. 25. It's the same, essentially the same value as near orbit. There's just, keep in mind that there's always 2 orbital levels. And so when you get science for one, be sure to get science for the other. We do a crew report. However, Kerbin, it's very round. 5 science there. Do an EVA. Hi, over Kerbin, you recorded your observations about the situation. 8 science. So not a whole lot, but it is new science. So between 25, 10, 35, 40, close to 50 science out of this, which combined with what we had before should be enough to unlock one of the next tier of technology. Okay, now that we're up here, and considering we're near our apoapsis anyway, we can go ahead and burn our retrograde there and bring our periaps down to intersect with the planet, and we actually might be pretty close to, well, let's try for this desert. See if we can get a sample from the desert. If we do land there, we can use one of the mystery goos for that instead of for the extra 2.5 we were getting from high orbit. Alright, so I will see you down there. Okay, we've managed to land in the desert, so this is an opportunity for a little extra science. Let's do an EVA, hanging on the ladder, flying over Kerbin's deserts, 5.6, board again, do another EVA and let go. I did that first one because once I get down I'm not getting back up. So drop. Walk out here a bit, just take surface sample, 9 science there, EVA report, 2.4 science there, and I have to be in the capsule to control it to do the other mystery goo, but that's okay. We'll just go ahead and take the science where we can find it. Alright, so recover Mr. LCal, the highest flying Kerbal in history, topping out at somewhere around 310,000 meters. So he got 11 science on his own there with the expedition to the desert. Now we'll go back for the ship. And we brought back 56.2 science with that one, giving us a total of 111, which is just enough to unlock 1 science. Let's see, what shall it be? We want something that will help us get to the moon. And while these large rocket parts are very tempting, I don't think that's what we need. What we need is RCS and the fuel line. So we don't need any of those adapters. That's mostly plain parts. We don't need those. Same with those. Solar panels, that is very, very tempting, but we're not transmitting science yet, so we should have enough electricity with coming from our module and our rocket engines. This is going to be useful again for transmitting. Ladders would be really nice, but since we can fly on the moon in mid-miss, that's not the extra science. That is going to be key later. But right now, for our first mission, this is what's going to help us the most. So let's go ahead and pick that. And that will do it for episode 3 of How to Science in Kerbal Space Program version 0.23. I know I said we were probably going to the moon in this episode, but we had a couple of missions to do to kind of set that up. We now have a rocket design that has a good amount of delta V. We just need to add a little bit more, be able to get into orbit around the moon and Minmus. So I think we'll be in really good shape there with these extra parts. This extra engine, high efficiency, low thrust, RCS, and most importantly the fuel ducts for a particular way of getting more delta V out of our rockets. Anyway, that's it for me. I'm Jim. This has been How to Science in Kerbal Space Program. I want to thank you for joining me. Have a great day.